few years ago, they changed their tone. They said to me, bigots like you belong in the closet. We do not have the right to our views. This is where things are. We'll take questions in a moment, okay? So let me just give you a few verses, and then we'll have a time for interaction. Again, the whole point is, look at where the thing goes. Look at where the thing goes. Don't just think, convinced he's a girl, why can't he wear a dress? Don't just look at that. Care about that kid. By all means, pray for them. Try to refer them to a place where they can get good godly counseling, or prayer, or ministry. Where it goes, if perception is substituted for reality. Don't just think about Sally and Savannah that seem like a really nice couple and loving. What? Why can't, look, two mothers? So what's so bad about having two mothers? Don't just look at that. Look long term. And remember, the world's best mother is not a father, and the world's best father is not a mother. So, just a few verses, all right? Genesis, the first chapter. What's one of the things we see there that God makes the fruit trees and things like that? Everything reproduces after its own kind. Yes. So, how does God establish things at the beginning? Genesis 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male, female, he created them. Yes, we understand that less than 1% of the population has a biological handicap or a chromosomal handicap, because of which there's ambiguity about their gender. But the way things are today, hey, you're on Facebook? Check it. How many still use Facebook? Okay, I say still because I know it's like the newest thing, all right? So most of you. Make sure you connect with me at Start Your Ground on Facebook. Seriously, you'll be blessed if you do. On Facebook, go to your bio, okay? For gender, you know how many options there are? Well, 50. They came up with 50. This is a couple of years ago. You guys didn't even know this. You're the old guy knows more about social media. Come on. So look, there were people who protested the fact that they had only 2 gender choices. So they came up with 50 ways, 50, to describe your gender, including 10 simultaneously.
Oh, you can have
50 different ways to describe your gender. Right? If I said, all right, here's $1,000, come up with 50. Who can come up with 50? You didn't even think of that, right? 50 ways to describe your gender, but you can choose 10 simultaneously.
What?
And the activists said that's good, but it's not good enough because we don't all fit into one of those 50 categories. So they came up with another choice. I'm serious. It's on Facebook. For America, Facebook in America. They came up with another choice, which is fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. Come up with anything. There was an interview on NPR, National Public Radio, which is very liberal, and they were talking to people about those who are on the cutting edge of gender now, high school students and college students, and they were saying how their gender can vary by the event they go to. I can be he at this event and she at the next event. And there are others, high school kids, that did not want to identify as either male or female, and they said, call me tractor. I'm not making this up. This is major. NPR is very, very major liberal radio, and they're having this discussion about it. And just search for tractor on my website. I mean, all this is documented. I've written tons of stuff on this. It's all documented. None of this is made up. The latest article that we just posted on Facebook, somebody on my team posted it. It's on this radical feminist website, and they want to warn you not to misgender your pet. Just because the dog pees a certain way doesn't mean that dog's actually a male dog. You don't want to misgender your pet. Well, I've got another question. What if that dog is actually a lizard trapped in a dog's body? They fetch with the dog and it's a lizard. I mean, it's madness. It is madness. I care about the people. I keep reaching out to the people, but I'm going to expose the madness of what it is. And we were talking to someone, just asking the questions. If it's okay for 2 men or 2 women to marry, just say, what if you love 3 people? Is that okay? You keep asking the questions until ultimately they have to agree to everything that they think is crazy. Because there's no limit to it. I did a talk on the campus here, 2 years ago, and it was on God and sexuality. And there are a bunch of young people there that differed with me, but they were making facial expressions, but they were respectful. They didn't interrupt when I spoke, so I knew they were just waiting for the Q&A part. So they just said, this whole slippery slope thing, this whole argument that once you go this way, you slide down, it's just nonsense. There's no slippery slope. So I started asking them questions. So if love is love, is it okay to marry your, 2 guys? How about 3 guys? Well, yeah. Well, how about 2 guys and a girl? Or 2 girls and 3 guys? And, well, yeah. Well, why not? And we just started going on and on. I've got a video where I take a Stephen Colbert segment where he's mocking this idea of these different weddings. And he's got some woman married to the Eiffel Tower. Google Dorothy Eiffel. She married the Eiffel Tower. I'm serious. I'm going to show you the video, but I've got a video where we're talking about the woman who married a dolphin in Israel, and the lady who married a snake in India, and the woman who married a dog in England. I'm not making any of this up. They had formal ceremonies with guests, and the guy in the States who wanted to marry his computer because he had all the porn on his computer. That's what he was interested in. Okay, all right. Just when you're at my website, just search for Colbert and you'll see the video, okay? So I kept asking them these questions. What about 2 brothers getting married, 2 sisters? And they ultimately had to say that everything was okay. I said, so you didn't tell me that the slippery slope doesn't exist. You just told me you don't mind the slippery slope. First, they mocked me for the idea that one thing would lead to another, and then they embraced all of it. So that's why help people, help young people, help your peers to think through, to think ahead, to think this thing through logically and not just with soundbite. Throw the soundbite back at them and see where it leads. All right? So once you get away from the foundation, one God created us, and created us male and female, you end up with kids who want to be called tractor. All right? I'm serious. All right, Genesis chapter 2. We're almost done. Genesis chapter 2. So Adam, first man, no suitable helper. So what does God do? God takes his rib, or Hebrew Selic means side, right? And out of that, he makes the woman. So Hebrew, the woman is Isha. Woman, man is Ish. So the Isha comes out of the Ish. The woman comes out of the man, right? So what does God say? It's not good that the man, should be alone. I will make him a suitable helper. A suitable helper. Why didn't God just say a suitable companion? Why a suitable helper? Maybe the Garden of Eden was really big. They didn't have power mowers then. So he needed Eve to help with the garden. No. If God says be fruitful and multiply, you cannot do that on your own. No. And you can have 1 million of the nicest gay couples in the world, all right? And they cannot, in and of themselves, physically reproduce. Okay? So in order for Adam to be able to reproduce and fulfill the commission of God, he needed a suitable helper. Right. Both for companionship, for his loneliness, right? So relationships are important, and for the ability to reproduce. So what does it say? When Adam sees Eve, verse 23, then the man said, this at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, Isha, because she was taken out of man, Ish. Then it says this, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Why do they become one flesh? Because they were one flesh. Woman was taken out of the man and made into her own unique being. Now only the male and female can come together and be one in that unique way. Only the male and female have that capability. And even the way we were designed and made. One guy put up a review to my book, Can You Be Gay and Christian, on Amazon, and he's something like 70 years old. He'd been in a gay relationship for 45 years, buried his lover not that long ago, but recently came to faith. And he said, I think I'm always going to be same-sex attracted. I realize it's wrong. He said, even an atheist can tell that men were made for women and women for men, and not for same sex. So there's unique compatibility when the man and woman come together. Have you ever heard of the book series Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus?
Right.
Okay, so it's still best-selling for years. So Mars plus Mars, or Venus plus Venus, does not equal Mars plus Venus. There's unique compatibility with the male and female together in the cycle of life that the woman goes through, childbearing and things like that, the emotional makeup and everything else that only a man and woman coming together, along with biology, can fulfill. Because they were one, right? God takes something out of Adam and makes something unique. Now the two become one. Only those two can become one. So if someone says to you, well, how come there are only like 6 verses in the Bible? Like 6 verses in the Bible that speak against homosexuality. No. They're completely wrong. Completely wrong. Let me give you an illustration that my friend Larry Tomczak uses. Let's say that I decide to write a book, a healthy dessert book, and I don't use sugar in any of the recipes. Okay? It's a healthy dessert book, and we don't use sugar at all, because we don't believe in refined sugar. We don't think it's healthy. So at the beginning of the book, I say every single recipe in this book will have good things, healthy things, sweet things, but no sugar. You will not find sugar in any recipe in the entire book, right? So maybe you do a search on your Kindle, it's like, wow, the word sugar only occurs 5 times in this guy's book. I guess sugar's not important. No. It's very important, because of which it is left out of every single recipe in the book. Every recipe for relationship in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is a heterosexual relationship. Every God-ordained relationship, every parable, every law, everything that's stated on any level having to do with marital relationships is always only heterosexual. Honor your father and mother. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, submit to your husbands. Every parable, every teaching, everything that has anything to do with marriage and relationships that God blesses. Every recipe in the book is a heterosexual recipe. And every so often, God will just say homosexual practice is prohibited, or it's very wrong, or it's detestable, or if you practice that, you can't enter the kingdom. Okay? Because the whole book of recipes is based on God's order of male and female. He created us, and that's how we come together. So let's say you're a gay couple. Say, hey, we're gay Christians. And you're reading these admonitions. You're reading Ephesians 5, right? Husbands, love your wives. Wives, submit to your husband. Who's the husband? Who's the wife? I don't mean that to be demeaning. It's that wasn't written for you. It's not working. Do you ever have a manual, you're trying to fix something, you realize, oh, I got it for wrong, this is the wrong model? Or you trying to do something on your cell phone, it's like, that's the old software. It's not compatible. Right. Homosexuality is not compatible with the divine prescription. And that's why everything through the Bible, there's not a single positive reference to homosexual relationships anywhere in the Bible. Nope. You say, what about David and Jonathan? Look, David got in trouble for his lust for women, okay? Right. It's not describing a gay man. Right. David had multiple wives and got in big trouble because he was so lustful for other women. Right. David and Bathsheba. There's not a single positive reference to homosexual practice. It's flatly forbidden under the law. God said to Israel in Leviticus 18, don't do this. People of the other nations do this, so you don't do this. This is wrong. But it's not just wrong for you, wrong for everybody. Right. And then when Jesus addresses these issues, Piers Morgan asked me on TV years back, and he showed me one verse and said, I'm not gay or being gay. And Jesus said one word. I said, I'll give you 3. First, Matthew 5, he says, I didn't come to abolish the law, but fulfill. So what does he do? Like adultery and divorce, he takes them to higher moral levels. Right? Matthew 5, 17 to 20. And then, Matthew 15, starting verse 19, he says, it's not that which comes in your mouth that defiles, but that which comes out of the heart. What does he list? Sexual immorality. All kinds, it's plurally Greek, all kinds of sex outside of wedlock, defile. And then Matthew 19, 4 to 6, he defines marriage from the beginning, ordained by God as one man and one woman for life. Anyway, throughout the entire Bible, all of Scripture presupposes male-female, presupposes heterosexuality as the norm. If you meet someone, they're struggling with homosexuality, and now you're telling them about following Jesus, say, are you telling me I never have sex? I'm 18, I never have sex with someone. Are you telling me I can never be in a relationship? I tell them, number 1, Jesus requires everything of all of us. Once you get saved, he doesn't promise you you're going to get married. He doesn't promise you you're going to have wonderful sex. That doesn't promise you anything. It says, leave everything and follow me. That's number one. Jesus requires everything of everybody. Number two, Jesus is more than enough. Whatever he has for you is good and wonderful. And there are plenty of people that used to be homosexual that aren't. And there are others that still struggle with same-sex attraction, but they're single and they're happy and they love the Lord. And they're not going back for a split second. And it's a guy a pastor in England, who still struggles with same-sex attraction. He's one who says, no harder for me than anybody else. Because Jesus requires everything of everybody. And Jesus himself is more than enough. And the goal of the heterosexuality is holiness. Introduce people to the Lord, let them grow in holiness. That's the great emphasis. So again, remember the Ahari. Where does this go? You guys are growing up in a very different world. But you guys have a lifestyle that will last and reproduce blessing. And all this other stuff is going to crash and burn. We live faithfully. We'll be there to help steer America in the right direction. All right? So thanks for listening with such attentiveness and focus. If you have some relevant questions, let me try to get to as many as I can, as quickly as I can. Yes, ma'am.
Wait.
Hang on.
The mic is coming.
We got a microphone here. It's the Q&A part, one of my favorite parts. Let's see where my students are coming from.
Please stand.
All right.
Uh-oh, Sarah.
Hang on. Tell you what, what's this?
Oh my goodness. Your word, Ahari, how would you spell that? Just because I want to use it for reference.
Okay. So the deal is, however you spell it, that helps you to pronounce it. Because in Hebrew, it's Aleph, Het, Resh, Yud, Tav, which doesn't help you, right? So, if you spell it, A-C-A, like A, then dash, C-H-A. Just remember, it's not Chuck. There's no Chuck in Hebrew. Otherwise, maybe K-A, right? So A-C-H-A or K-H-A, and then dash R-E-E-T, with the accent on the last syllable. Ah-cha-reet. Okay? All right. Another question. We have the mic working here. You still have your question?
Yeah.
All right, hang on. So all the way. Actually, when you're in the front, we have to go to the back. All right. Okay.
Earlier you were just saying like they'll put you in the closet. I just want to know what that means.
Okay. So those who come out of the closet want to put us in the closet. So what does that mean? Initially, the whole gay movement was we have to come out of the closet because we have to hide our identity, right? So when I was growing up as a kid, my first organ teacher was an openly gay man, and he and his partner would come to our home and have dinner with us. That wasn't normal. You couldn't just show who you were in society, so you had to be in the closet, right? So you'd secretly be having homosexual relations, but then publicly just act like you're like everybody else, okay? So they came out of the closet. This is who we are. We're not ashamed. Now it's the norm, right? So by putting us in the closet, it means we can't freely express who we are. It means that they don't want us to hold to these views, that we're being bigoted, that people like me shouldn't be on the radio, or that churches shouldn't be able to say no to performing a same-sex wedding. Or if you're a photographer and a lesbian couple comes in and say, hey, I want you to shoot the wedding, say, hey, go to my friend down the block, he'll take good care of you, but I can't do it because it's against my beliefs. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. So we would have to put our beliefs in the closet in secret. We would be silenced, is what I meant by that. Yes. Yes, sir.
You was asking like why do we think it can be like 2 men or 2 women or 3 men and 3 women?
Yeah.
I was kind of even Jesus sent his angel to destroy the whole city of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right. So you're saying that we can give scripture for divine judgment? Yeah. Well, you just had to be prepared that someone's going to point you to Ezekiel 16. Where it says the sins of Sodom, when they were complacent and didn't care for the poor, etc. And they'll claim that was the issue there. So you can use that as an example of why it's wrong, but it's best to talk about God's positive model, male, female, he created them, and then other prohibitions. Romans 1 is real strong. Leviticus 18 still applies. If someone says to you, but no, Leviticus, that's just for Israel. Like you don't keep the dietary laws. Tell them this. Some laws in Leviticus were just for Israel, like dietary laws, or you can't wear two different kinds of garments, just to teach you to be separate. And some laws that God gave were for everybody, like don't murder. So don't commit homosexual practice, that was for everybody that God gave in Leviticus 18. He said it's wrong for the Canaanites as well. By the way, this reminds me of something. You ever hear the argument that gay is the new black? You hear it all the time, right? So I am going to destroy that argument in less than 5 seconds. You ready? Okay, so would you stand up? Okay, less than 5 seconds. I'm going to destroy the argument that gay is the new black. You ready? Okay, so when did you come out as black? Ah, see? It's just a to get in. The whole, you don't come out. You don't, I'm going to identify as black. No, you don't make that decision, okay? And it's not, so just make that clear. That's hijacking the civil rights movement. All right, yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, you stopped just after, when you push the issue all the way to where do you draw the line, and you go all the way to the end of the line with someone where they're just fine with everything.
Yes.
Do you walk away from that conversation? Is there any way to like bring it back? Like, I feel like so much of our generation has just turned their mind off, and
Yes.
if everything's okay, everything's okay. They're not going to make a stand on any one particular issue. Is there any argument you found that you can click it to, no, that's where I'll stand?
Yeah, so if they're willing to say that anything goes, and love is love, and take it to the, so why can't you marry your cobra? If it's defanged, why can't you marry your cobra? And they're like, okay with everything. On a certain level, you just have to really try to build a relationship and pray that the Holy Spirit will work in their lives and get them to think about reality. Because a lot of people are just talking, and they haven't really thought the thing through. But you do your best through that argument. In other words, that's the thing that hopefully will get them to the point of realizing how absurd it is. Because they may tell you publicly they believe it, but in their heart of hearts, is that what they really, really think? So, for example, a lot of people who are pro-transgender, now when the couple realizes that means that Joe, who's 15, and identifies as a girl, is sharing the shower stalls and locker room with my daughter and playing on her softball team, they suddenly have a problem with it. So in theory it becomes reality. But sometimes you just have to take the thing to its extreme, because initially they were rejecting the slippery slope. And then what they ended up doing was completely embracing the slippery slope. So within 5 minutes, their position completely changed. That has to, if you have a relationship, you sit down and you keep talking about it. You really feel this way? You really actually believe that? So if I just told you that I'm a cow and I want you to treat me as a cow or whatever, here, do you know what therian are, or other kin? Therian or other kin?
What's that?
Another thing, Oh, no, okay. All right. Therian or other kin are people who believe they are part animal or different species. And you go online, they have communities of hundreds of thousands. Somebody believes they're a bumblebee. Somebody believes they're a tiger. They get together. They have outings. They put on tails and they howl and stuff. I'm serious. And they're like, nobody understood me in my school. It sounds exactly like the same thing here. How many know what BIID is? Body Integrity Identity Disorder. BIID. Okay. So this is someone whose mind map, their brain, tells them, I should not have a left arm beneath the elbow. I shouldn't have a right leg. They are tormented until they actually they are people laid down by train tracks, have a train run over a limb. One guy amputated his legs with a chainsaw. Another guy froze his foot to death, froze it until it had to be amputated. Another woman blinded herself because this is how they identified. They were tormented and they were thrilled. This is the best thing they ever did, having the limb removed or so on. So why is that wrong? I asked that on the Tara Banks show. I said, well, why? So here, do you give liposuction to an anorexic? No, the person thinks they're fasting, but they're not. They're dying of not eating. So if there's a way to jar them into reality, you do it. If they just keep agreeing with everything, they probably don't even mean it deep down. Many years ago when I was in high school, I was talking to a philosophy teacher, and he was a radical existentialist, so everything was perception. I said, okay, do you agree that the two of us are sitting in a room having a conversation? He said, not necessarily. So we're done. I have to take a break for this. So at a certain point, it only goes so far. Yes, sir.
I kind of have two questions here. One, did you say that the homosexual group can't get into heaven? Is that correct?
Well, Paul says that those who practice homosexuality, just like those who practice adultery or those who practice drunkenness, will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Sure. I mean, that's pretty plain.
And then,
I mean, God can grant grace and repentance, of course, but those who practice willful sin don't enter. Sure.
okay, gotcha. And then, second one, is there a way to really combat whenever someone asks for a service of some kind? Say I was a photographer, like you said. Is there a way to combat that if they tried to sue you? Would you know any way to actually go about doing that? Because I'm going into the field of business, and service is going to be one of them.
Yes, sir. Yes, so let me just clarify. You may struggle with same-sex attraction. It doesn't mean God hates you. It doesn't mean he's damned you. Everybody struggles with something. Don't make that your identity. That's the big issue, okay? Your identity is fundamentally who you are. But we all have issues. You may have an anger issue, or violence issue, or greed issue, or lust issue, some other thing, all right? But you recognize that's part of my fallen nature. That's not who I am. I'm a new creation in Jesus. So someone may struggle with same-sex attraction. They're as loved by God as anyone. And over the years, my heart goes out to them all the more. Now, I've sat with people, tears streaming down my cheeks as they tell me their stories, because I think that's got to be a lot of pain to live with them. They must be rejected, through their lives. So I care all the more. It's practicing sin. But as far as what to do, well, you do what's right in love, right? If you can, in good conscience, do something. And there are plenty of Christian legal associations that will stand with you and fight for you. The Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF, is one. Liberty is another. There are quite a few. American Family Association, some of my good friends are attorneys with these. And there's a major case that's going to the Supreme Court in the fall, a Masterpiece case, where a guy said that it's one thing, whoever comes to your store, you serve, right? But if someone says, here, look at this, we are Satanists, and we want a cake that says, God is a fairy tale and Satan rules. We're like, sorry, I'm a Christian. I can't do that. So everyone would understand that, right? If you go to a gay T-shirt shop, right, owned by a gay couple, and say, hey, I want you to print verses for me, homosexuality is an abomination, they could say no. Of course they should be able to say no. Of course, that's only right and fair. If you go to a Muslim caterer and say, hey, I want you to cater my wedding, great, but we want pork. Well, we're Muslims, we don't serve pork. Fine. So it's accepted in every area except this area now. So this case is going to the Supreme Court, Masterpiece case. Well, the guy said he couldn't make a cake for a gay wedding. So you serve everybody, but if they ask you to participate in something or in a message that's contrary to your views, then you have every right to say no. But then the best thing is to be ready to just say, hey, I've got a colleague down the block who'd love to, and tell you, bring this card, you get a 10% discount. So you're going to love people, you're going to be gracious to people, so that they can't accuse you of anything else. And say, hey, let me just give you a cake on the house just to take home. We make great cakes, but I can't participate. So you do everything, every way you know how to. Be gracious, walk in love, making clear I'm not rejecting you as people. I just can't participate in the ceremony. And if it goes to where you have to take a stand, hey, look, no one's beheading us right now for the faith, right? So if we have to take a stand and go to court, let's gladly do that while our brothers and sisters are dying for the faith. Yes, a few more right here. Okay, yes. Oh, yeah.
So my question to you was, especially since I'm going into business and I have a heart for ministry, I want to know how to minister to these people, because I've run into, gays and lesbians, gosh, you name it. But I really want to learn how to actually get to their hearts with offending them. And Lance likes to refer to it as being a killer sheep.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to approach those people without offending them, but getting to their hearts.
Sure. Thank you for the question. The fact you have the question means you're a long way in the right direction. So you ask God to give you a supernatural baptism of love. I mean, gay activists always mock me for this. They say they don't believe me, but God knows the times I've been on my knees weeping. Writing a book on this and put it down and say, God, I don't want to hurt people. I want to help people. And get alone and weep, because I know, man, you suffered enough rejection already. And when I say what I say, you're going to feel more rejection. But I have to be honest and faithful. So ask God for supernatural love. That's one thing. And then another thing, you relate to them like every other human being. You take a genuine interest in their lives, because most gays, lesbians you meet live normal lives. You know, the quote gay lifestyle for them is get up in the morning, go to work, get home, you know, do what we do, go back to, you know, just a normal life, right? So you're going to relate to them like everyone you care about, you take an interest in their lives. And what I always try to do, the moment I'm talking to someone, maybe a long flight, and it's clear that they're gay, or they give a tip of their hand, I'll tell them, you know, I'm a follower of Jesus, and I know there's a lot of controversy over these things these days. Tell me your story. I always ask them to tell me their story. And it's not a ploy. In other words, I genuinely want to know. I want to know their story. I want to know their background. I want to know what happened to them. When did they feel they were same-sex attracted, whatever. I genuinely ask because I genuinely care. And I want to educate myself. I want to better understand the world that I did not grow up in myself. And then out of that, my classic example, I'm flying to Rome, and I just wanted to chill and then write, maybe watch a clean movie. The guy next to me, instantly out and proud, flight attendant, going over to Rome to see his partner, off for a day. So he's out and proud. I said, well, I'm a follower of Jesus, born again, conservative. I said, if he's out and proud, I'm out and proud, So we started talking. And my feeling is if you cut us, we should bleed love. In other words, it's not put on. Because people can feel the difference. I always use this illustration, but there used to be this, well, still is, this exotic pet store on Long Island with these unbelievable parrots, talking parrots, and macaws, and these unbelievable birds. And they've got vicious beaks. They're real rough. And I go over to one of them, and I put my finger out for the bird to get on my finger, and they go to bite me, so I back away. And then Nancy, my wife, she'd go over and get right on her finger. How'd that happen? So I go over to another one that she had just had on her finger, and I put my finger out, and it goes to bite me, so I pull away. And I said to her, why are they going to bite me? They go on your finger. She said, they can tell you're afraid. So the bird could just tell that I was afraid. It didn't want to go on my finger. She wasn't afraid, so it had to do what she wanted. The same way, from a distance, people are going to misjudge us. But face-to-face, we spend time, they're going to know. If we really care, they'll know it. So I fly to Rome. This guy and I have a long talk. He tells me his story, everything. I sit there listening with tears. At the end of the flight, I said to him, if you met someone who held to all of my beliefs and convictions, would you consider that person homophobic? He said, absolutely. I said, do you consider me homophobic? He said, no, I heard your heart. We exchanged email addresses and everything. So ask God for supernatural love, that's one. Two, get to know them like you would anybody else, take an interest in their lives. And three, ask them to tell you their stories. And just say, hey, listen, as a follower of Jesus, there's so much misunderstanding. I want to know your heart. Tell me your story. Most people are happy to share those things with you. And then from there, you can really pray like for anyone else. Then forget the issue of homosexuality and reach them like you would anybody else. Here's someone who needs Jesus. All right? Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Mine's kind of a two-part question. One's more of a clarification. The first one. Did you say that
No, I would never say that. Go ahead.
Did you...
Go ahead. Did I say
that we really can't assume anything about anyone today? Like, we can't assume that you're actually a man. We're not supposed to, I'm not specifically asking about you, but about anyone.
Right, okay. So, in some circles, you are told not to do that. Everyone you meet, this is on college campuses increasingly, everyone you meet, you are supposed to ask them, how do you identify? There was one, I was doing a debate with a rabbi at a campus a few months ago, and a student there, hang on, keep it in your head, you'll get it. A student there attended a conference on the campus, and each speaker got up and said, male, he, his, her, but each one identified how they wanted to be recognized. So you're supposed to do that, especially if it's not clear. That's how extreme it's become.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how it works. All right. My second question is, I hope you don't mind this. Why did you assume that Marcus was black then?
I don't buy that nonsense.
I was
that you
just
can't
asking.
assume anything.
I was just asking.
Yeah. No, in other words, this is the prevailing attitude that you can't assume anything. All right? I don't believe it for a split second. You're a girl, he's a guy, I'm a guy, you're a guy, she's a girl, right? Okay, I'm white, he's black, right? So I don't go, you're Asian, okay, I'm Caucasian. Yeah, I assume all of that to be true. Okay, we are humans. You are not dogs and dinosaurs and griffins and whatever. We are humans, okay? So, yeah, there is this prevailing attitude. Yeah. There is this prevailing attitude that says you can't. I don't believe that. I reject that wholeheartedly. I'm explaining what's out there. The whole night I'm telling you what's out there. Here, just to be clear, I do not believe that twin brothers should be able to get married. I do not believe that. So I was using illustrations, making arguments. Okay? So if anybody missed that at any point, just make that clear. All right, maybe this is the two last questions, all right? Two last questions. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Just because I want to know how to argue it better.
Yeah,
and
please.
It's never something that I've biblically dove into. So when you were talking about homosexuality and verses in the Bible, you were saying how there's no verses for man, woman, or blah, blah, blah. True. But there are verses in the Bible about men with multiple wives. Mm-hmm. And I understand the whole New Covenant, Old Covenant, the fall, all of that. But how would you argue that? Because it is in the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we deal with polygamy? First, it illustrates the point about homosexuality, that even variations of marriage were always male-female. That you had variations, but they were always heterosexual. So when people say, well, look, you have all this different stuff in the Bible, yeah, but it's all heterosexual. So that's the first thing. But as far as polygamy, here's what we would say. That it was never God's ideal, and that if we take the whole Bible, the Bible goes against it. So number one, God didn't create Adam and Eve and Yvette and Yvonne, right? It was Adam and Eve. So in the beginning, it was one man, one woman for life, all right? Jesus then in Matthew 19:4-6 reinforces that and says the two become one. That's God's plan from the beginning, all right? That's number one. Number two, the Bible teaches us a lot by example. Like you watch what happened to other people. So throughout the Bible, men with multiple wives, whenever you get into the story, it always created problems. Abraham taking a second wife created problems. Jacob marrying two sisters created problems. David having many wives created problems. Then you end up with Solomon, 300 wives, 700 concubines, and he ends up falling into idolatry. So whenever you have polygamy, you have problems with it. Under the law, Deuteronomy 17, the king could not have many wives, right? So it was permitted under the law. But Jesus also tells us that divorce was permitted because our hearts were hard. It was never God's intent. So we have Jesus teaching what he does, and then you also have Paul saying that you can't have an elder that has more than one wife, right? So the example before the church leaders is one man, one woman. And then you're supposed to follow the example of elders, so within a generation or two, polygamy then gets wiped out. But I would say this, I have less of a problem with polygamy than I do with gay, quote, marriage, because one fundamentally changes it from a male-female union and creates something totally new. But, so the ideal of what God created in Genesis, Jesus reaffirms the example of all the problems that polygamy causes. It was never God's best, and God calls us to his best. So that's the basic argument. Yes, Dan. Okay.
Hang on, I have a real quick question.
Real quick.
Okay, so the Bible talks about sodomy, right? And I looked that up, and it's anal and oral sex.
No, not by that. That's a more contemporary definition.
So
sodomy, as it originally defined, was specifically anal sex, male anal sex. But then by definition, would be wrong for anyone.
Okay, so how could two gay men that consider themselves Christian be married, already messed up there, but consider themselves Christians that so they'd have to not have sex in their marriage too?
No, they would. Deception is very deceiving. Remember that. Right? Deception is very deceiving. So they would just reinterpret the verses. They would say they mean something else. We don't understand the Hebrew, or that was just for the people of Israel. It doesn't apply to us today, one thing or another like that. So, again, deception is very deceiving. Okay, yes, ma'am.
How do you reason with the unfortunate idea that gay marriage is protected under the First Amendment?
Right. Well, the First Amendment says nothing about marriage whatsoever. I would ask someone, okay, cast your argument. Please show me in the First Amendment whether it says anything about marriage or constituting a marriage. And then so first there's nothing there. So rather than respond to the argument, which is an empty argument, say, please explain to me from the First Amendment, I must be missing something. Please explain to me from the First Amendment where it addresses the issue of marriage. And if they say the pursuit of happiness, say, well then you agree that goes for anything. If what makes us happy is having 100 people in a relationship, then we should be able to. So again, you just ask what it actually means. Number one, it doesn't touch on marriage. And number two, it then becomes whatever you make it. All right? You're very welcome. All right, tell you what, there was one last question I saw. So we'll take that. Yes.
So I go to USC and I'm in a video game design major. In every single class I have to, or all the students when they introduce themselves, they have to say their PGPs. All the professors do as well in my major.
What do they have to say?
Preferred gender pronouns or PGPs.
Okay.
So she heard.
Got it. So did you just hear that?
No.
And say it once more.
Say it louder.
And slower.
Yes, slow.
I'm in a video game design major at USC Los Angeles. And my major is extremely liberal, and at the beginning of every class, or at the start of every semester, every student, every professor has to say their name, blah, 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 and their PGPs, their preferred gender pronouns.
Got that? This is coming to a school near you if it's not there already. Every professor, every student in her program, you have to say, I am Mike, I am male, my preferred gender pronouns are he, his, her. I am Zuan, I am gender binary fluid, my preferred pronouns are Z, Zer, Zem. Right? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So, I know, basically my major is like, I'd say 90% gender fluid or non-straight. And so I know I'm in the field I'm supposed to be at this moment.
Yes.
And the main way to succeed in this industry, the video game design industry, is networking. So they always tell you, you gotta meet people, never, try not to burn bridges, always just network with people, because that's networking is actually more important than skill in the video game industry, so you know. So what I've done is basically just be nice to everybody.
Right.
So I guess my question, I'm just gonna be honest, I was pretty offended by a lot of what you were saying. To me, it made me feel like you were mocking them. A lot of what you said, and even there when you introduced yourself, just how you say Z and Zer. Because for me, it's very much a reality, and it's something I have to accept about the people. And we're not allowed to laugh when we say our PGPs. Otherwise, the professors will get, well, everybody, they'll get so mad at you. And
so let me first, thanks for being honest. I appreciate that. The first thing is this. This is insanity. It is cultural insanity. It's like the devil has taken over people's minds. And you can never feel comfortable, ever. All right? And maybe others were offended, I'm not sure. But if you didn't hear my heart of love throughout, I'm sorry, because God knows the tears I shed and God knows the load I carry. And that's why I'm constantly qualifying. I mean, I don't know how many times I said the struggle, the pain, I can't imagine the rejection. Let's help people. But certain things deserve to be ridiculed. Not the people, but the ideas. They deserve to be ridiculed. The more you think this is normal, the more you've been infected. Okay? What you have to do is go to God so that this stuff seems utterly outrageous to you, because it's outrageous to Him, which is going to create greater love for people. Right? It will. So be super loving to everybody. Never compromise anything, and never get used to this. Because if you're used to it, your kids will think it's great. Your kids will be telling you that they want to identify as this or that. Okay? When I'm talking to pastors in California who say my kids are not with me when it comes to homosexuality because of the culture. It's just it's a steady brainwash. This is cultural insanity, nothing less. So I'm going to be compassionate. That video ends with saying these people deserve our pity and prayers. Why do I say this constantly? Because I love Jesus and I care about people. And certain things deserve to be exposed as the madness that they are. So I would go to the Lord and ask Him, put afresh in my heart your pain over this and your outrage over this. Because God grieves over this, and it's completely an insane frontal assault on male and female He created them. And it's going to go further. This is just the beginning. Okay? Look, you're going to be penalized. You're going to be penalized professionally if you don't go along with it. So it's already being put in the closet. As far as the networking, obviously it's the right place to be, being that liberal. But ask God to give you a fresh sense so that causes agony in your heart when you realize the confusion that a whole generation is growing up in. And then, he's friendly. You should be known as the nicest person in the whole class. If anybody's got a problem, you should be the one they go to talk to, because they know you really love them. And let them know you're a Christian. Smash their stereotypes, their wrong thinking, and then either God will give you supernatural networking, or God will cause things to go viral, or He'll connect you with other people in unusual ways. Trust Him, He can certainly do that, but it does express the challenge. Hey, just as Lance comes up here, let me ask this question, okay? Be totally straight with me, all right? Totally honest with me. Because I'm talking to young people all the time. Our ministry school is mainly college age. I'm talking to all different generations all the time, and feedback all the time. So answer me totally honestly, okay? Because this also gives me an idea of the world you're living in. You're going to be totally honest? Yeah. Your response? Okay. First thing, how many of you felt that in terms of talking about homosexual individuals, those who identify as transgender, that I genuinely care about individuals? Or how many felt that I genuinely care? Just curious. Okay. All right. How many of you were specifically offended in the way that I presented certain things, or the way I talked about certain things, felt offended? Okay. All right. So just so you can appreciate that, I would say, me being 62 and you guys being 14 to 26, all right, and touching on as many controversial issues as we did, I'm sorry I offended any, but I'm very pleased that I only offended a handful, because this is a landmine.
Yeah.
It is an absolute minefield everywhere you turn. But I would rather offend some of you by getting a point across strongly than offend nobody by being a wimp. All right? So as long as you know there's love there, and I'm here, obviously to pour into you, there's no ulterior motive. All right? So thanks for the interaction, and we will move forward together. Connect with me online, and we can stay in touch. All right? Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Curiosity, what did you guys appreciate about Dr. Brown? Give me some, put your hand up and just give me a word. I'm going to call on you. Give me a word. Rawness. Honesty. Love. What? You got to get my focus on my index finger. Love. Okay, now. That he appreciated the issue was brought up. The caring. Well versed. Sensitivity. Sorry about that. Sensitivity. Try not to say the wrong one. Sensitivity to God. Who else down here? Yes. Did not sugarcoat anything. Who else? Yes. Bravery.
We're real and down to earth.
Real and down to earth. Like the passion. One more. I know we can back up everything. Well, I appreciate the scholarship, which is a rare gift in the church world, where so much emphasis and, frankly, psychic reward and compensation goes to other things, phenomena, and easy paths. Thank you for being a scholar. Thank you for having the courage to say the things you say and to enter into the minefields that you go into. I thank God He gave you the disposition to do that. And it's a rare gift to know that someone cares that much and actually wrestles to make sure that you love the people that you're delivering with the truths that you're saying so eloquently. And man, we need more of you. And I need to spend more time with you. And we need to work more together. So let's give it up for Dr. So I'm going to give you a quick context for this. I'm going to say something that's going to be really controversial and undo any healing in the room that's already happened. So.
Thank you.
It's those cringeworthy moments that my own family worries about. My wife starts praying in tongues.
I am.
My daughter goes. But I believe that the devil has done a brilliant job of satirizing, mocking, putting humor at, poking fun at, and marginalizing a Christian worldview through entertainment, media, comedy. And you guys are so accustomed to getting beat up that you just accept it. Like the Jews in Germany were corralled into the ghettos and then into gas chambers. If you're going to survive in the future, when I call people, and when I talk about being a killer sheep, it means that you have to be very clear in your own head as to what the Word of God says, and stop trying to find out how to make yourself socially comfortable or career, compatible with sin while you try to walk with God. Because, frankly, life is short, and you're not going to accomplish much that's commendable if you're more worried about fitting in the culture than you are about fitting into God's world. And God's looking for flames of fire that can change the world, not people that are assimilated by the world but secretly admirers of Jesus. What has happened is the comedy and the humor and the satire and particularly the pop culture has made homosexuality so chic, so cool. And what's so sad is I've got the book on the strategy that was written in the 70s that was going to make Christians into the enemies and LGBT people into the cultural heroes that would capture you. And they wrote the strategy out at a Harvard meeting. It's called After the Ball, where they said basically they would work through media to create really sympathetic gay figures that everybody would love and adore, and kind of Neanderthalic, bigoted, intolerant, fundamentalist, sweaty Christians as the adversary. So the devil basically did a better job of marketing the idea of perversion than Christians did of defending their own faith in the face of this deluge of powerful programmed mind control. So now here you are. You're growing up in a world where, you know what's right and wrong, but you're more worried about offending people than you are about defending the truth.
Right.
So let me just share with you a story. I went to Harvard University, had to speak, and I had a major disruption because front page of the Harvard Crimson Press came out with an article against me, saying that I was a hate monger, which is kind of wild. I'll pay attention to here because you're right in front of me. When you're maybe 4 feet of me. So find it harder. And they end up having a protest. What they did was they had 1,000 witches that had put curses on them. They got together with all the agnostics on the campus, all the Muslims, all the gays, and all the liberals. And they all came together and formed a unified company to protest a couple of guys going on campus speaking for free. There was a couple of big-name preachers who saw the negative press and bailed out. And I got a call. And they said, man, there's no Christian that will even come talk to us because the press and the heat is so bad. So I said, well, I'll come. So, and at that point, I wasn't sure if I should go. I actually prayed about it, and I asked the Lord. I said, Lord, some people are telling me I shouldn't go to this Harvard thing because the press is covering it, and I might, I'll get visible, and it would be bad for my brand image. And the Lord was very kind to me. He said, there's not enough people that know who you are for you to have a brand image. So don't worry about it. Which was very humbling, but that's the truth. I said, well, all right. And I said, I want you to go because this is a battle that my people have to show up at. And I thought, well, why can't we have fewer martyrs if we would just use Skype more frequently? I will Skype it. The Lord said, no. You have to physically go, just like a missionary, into the area. Because they have a stereotype of what a Christian is. And you've got to break the stereotype. And to do that, you have to be in proximity to them so that they can see who you are. It's like scratch and sniff. They got to know what a real Christian is. And I said, well, I don't even know what the arguments are about. What they're upset about. The Lord said, it doesn't matter. They're upset with the truth. And so they're going to fight you just because you're a Christian. So I went there. Got the protest going on. The Muslims were the only ones that didn't show up for the protest. I don't even know why Muslims were mad at me. But they wouldn't be there because the gays were in it, which was interesting. So they didn't have all their Harvard unity together. I go in there, and I'm speaking, and they have professors there, and they're all waiting to hear the bigoted hate speech specialist. And I said there was a Jewish rabbinic scholar by the name of Martin Buber in the 1920s, 1930s, who watched the rise of Adolf Hitler. And he said, I would warn you that, this is an interesting, it's a Jewish rabbi, he says, there's only two ways that you can actually view people. You can have an I-thou relationship, which is the way that God designed us because we're all made in his image. Whether you are whether you're pro-gay or pro-Palestinian or pro-Jew or whatever, mankind is made in God's image. So when you're talking to someone, even if you disagree, as long as you believe the Hebrew worldview, which is that they're made in the image of God, then you'll treat them with a certain dignity, even if you disagree. He said, but what the Nazis will do is that they will begin to convince you that we are not human beings. We Jews are its. They'll show propaganda. Pictures that will make us look like rats in a maze running around, and they'll show mentally handicapped people that are deformed, and they'll say, this is the Judah, this is the Jew. And then they'll talk about the problems with the economy and the collapse of the economy being because of the Jews, and they'll show pictures of rats in a maze running. And what they did was they used media to propagandize a nation. This is a nation that created the Gutenberg Bible. This is the nation that gave the Reformation. This is the nation that gave Johannes Bach and Beethoven. So the nation gave the greatest in culture and the Reformation, and it justified putting human beings into ovens and gassing them and killing them. How can it do that? And here's what Buber said. He said, before somebody can kill you, they have to first hit you. They have to dehumanize you. So if someone can classify, this is why I'm very concerned about how people classify anything. So if you look at radical Muslim terrorists, and therefore you put a brand over all Muslims as being like terrorists in various levels, what you've done is you've taken beings made in the image of God and you've turned them into its. So what I told them was, I said, Harvard dedicated what? To a university for the creation of training for preachers. You guys can't even handle Christians in your own campus. That's how far you've drifted. The difference between us is I treat you as a thou, but you treat me as an it. And I still will give you the integrity of treating you as someone made in the image of God, even though you propagandize me and lie about me. Well, that was my main point. When that was done, I walked out of the meeting, and one of the witches comes up and says, she goes, "Why don't I have that?" She comes up and she goes, "I just want to say," she goes, "after hearing you," she pulls out a piece of paper. She said, "I was told that you were a radical Christian that advocated the burning of witches." She said, "But now that I listen to you, I actually realize that these people misled me, and I have to put all these curses on you. I have like thousands of people on Facebook cursing you. I feel kind of bad about it now." I said, "Well, all's well that ends well. It worked out pretty good." I said, "But maybe give me a commercial." So Annabelle had her video camera. I said, "When you tell people what you think of the conference?" She goes, "Wow." She goes, "You know, this was a great conference. I mean, you guys are a heck of a lot more fun than the witches I'm hanging out with." So she said, "You know, of course, you're a little preachy now and then, but that's to be expected." She said, "I encourage everybody to come to these conferences. They're great." So I got an advertisement from a witch, and I go walking down, and the gay guy comes up to me. He goes, "I came here to protest you because I was told that you are anti-gay. Now, I understand that you're not pro-gay, but you're different than I thought. I thought you hated people like me." I said, "No, absolutely not. I don't hate people like you." I get called in now to a meeting. I didn't realize the Harvard Faculty Board has to have a meeting because the students required a discussion on whether or not I was a hate speech specialist. And I thought, I can't believe we're having a trial. And they're having a trial, put me on trial. And so, let's see, I go out in the hallway, I want to get a cup of coffee. I'm finding out they have a trial going on. I go to some guy, and I say, "Hey, where's the coffee around here?" He stares at me like a zombie. And I look at this woman with him, I go, "You know what a coffee is?" And she just stares back at me. I go, "Man, these poor Harvard people, they're like there's some kind of mind mold or something like that." So someone else said, "Well, they don't have Dunkin' Donuts. They don't have Starbucks here. They have Dunkin' Donuts. And you got to go into the trial. We'll go ahead and get the hearing. But you will go ahead and get your coffee." So I said, "Wait a second. You guys drink coffee?" I figure I might as well like rev them up, pep them up or something. And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "How do you take it?" "Well, I take mine this way. I take it with cream and sugar." So I go, "All right. We'll get 3, 1 for him, 1 for her, 1 for him." And I said, "They're going to have this hearing in a minute. I'm going to go in the back room here to get a sandwich. You hungry?" They go, "Mm-hmm." They won't talk. I said, "Come with me." So we go back. We went to the speaker room. They have a can of sandwiches and stuff. I'm tossing them a sandwich. I go back out in the hall and they say, "Dr. Wallnau, it's time for the hearing." I go, "Oh my God." So I go into the hearing and I sit down and it was packed. It was so full of enemies, I thought I had friends on my side. It went all the way around right to sit next to me. So I'm like confiding in the guy next to me. So I think, "Well, this will be interesting." I thought he was one of us. He's the dean of the summer school. So faculty comes in, president of Harvard. "Well, we know our tradition of Harvard is we're a family. We're a family, and whenever there's an incident on the campus, we all stand together." So there's been a discussion now about hate speech. And of course, Harvard, the brand, we value that brand. We chose to have this person come speak today. And so I have an empty seat in front of me, and in comes, of all people, the guy I went to ask where the coffee was, and I got the coffee for. He sits right opposite me. He sits right there. I picked him out of a crowd like this. This is what happens when you pray in tongues a lot. God like leads you into the strangest things. I picked the guy that organized the protest and was working for the ACLU to lie about me. He's the journalist that wrote the article in the newspaper about me. He sits down right opposite me. He says, "You don't have a clue who I am, do you?" I said, rather savvy, I'm savvy. Wait a second. "Aren't you the guy I'm getting coffee for?" He looked a lot like it. He goes, "I am your nemesis." I'll tell you the truth. I knew that was a big word. I didn't know what it meant. I knew it wasn't good. And I said, "Uh-huh." And he said, "This man is one of the most dangerous people you've ever allowed on this campus. He is the architect of a 7-mountain dominionist concept that has gone global." I thought, really? He has people, listen, and he hides himself behind other people, all right, but I've researched that this is the one. This is the architect behind it. I said, I had no idea. Right about what's happening, the coffee comes in, and they bring the coffee in. and they give it to me. And I'm saying, okay, I got this is yours. I'm giving this to the lady, giving him his sugar pats, and everybody can see, obvious, that he's got a problem. Because I'm evidently like Mr. Magoo. I'm a nice guy. I'm picking him out of the crowd by accident, getting them coffee and sandwiches. So they have a hearing, and they come to conclusions, like on the Book of Acts thing. Bang, bang, the gavel. We find no evidence against this man that he is a hate speech person, although Harvard has a tradition of always working together our problems as a family, and that's why we're having the meeting, because we're a family after all. And you know, I'm so irritated, because on the way out the door, like the president guy, he gives me a wink, like, hey, you did good. Gives me a wink. I find it like he's some, I don't know, closet, maybe quasi-evangelical that goes to church locally. But he didn't stand up for me. He let me out there hanging. So I go out. I run into the homosexual guy again who said, you know, I'm not, oh, I remember. I leaned over to the guy next to me. I thought it was on my side. I said, man, that was intense. He said, no kidding. He said, what are you doing after this? What are you thinking? I said, you know what? I'll be honest with you. And this is the truth. I said, I am so dehydrated. Like, you know, after drinking the coffee and all this stress, all I could think of was Martin Luther and the Reformation, and he met with his youth at Wittenberg, you know, at the university. It was a university group, and they sat up late and drank beer and discussed theology. So all I can think of right now is beer and Martin Luther. And he goes, well, I'm the manager of the Harvard pub, and I consider it an honor if you would join me at the pub for Harvard's beer, because we have the only Harvard beer that's imported in, especially from Harvard students. And I have to confess, I'm a Jewish agnostic medical student, and I'm the dean of the summer school, and I organized the campus to work with the other guy. I said, you? He goes, yes, but I'm intrigued with what you're doing. I said, you're not at all like I thought you were. See what the Lord told me? He said, I had to go to be a missionary. And the reason why you got to go is you got to get into the thick of this thing. Proximity. And you got to go with your heart right, but you can't go genuflecting in front of the devil. You can't go like all embarrassed with the truth. You got to go forward with the truth and just follow around and love people. So I said, all right, well, yeah, let's go down to the pub. I go down to the pub and I run the gay guy, and you know, he goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, why don't you come with us to the pub? We got him going to the pub. Got the atheists coming along. They said, hey, where are you going? I said, I'm going down to the pub. We have all of our people going down to the pub. I have a whole group. I'm walking down with the protesters, going down to the pub to go have some beers. And I get down there, and when I'm down in the pub, I'm looking around the table, everybody's laughing and talking. And I thought, this is what Jesus will do. He'll go right into the place where the controversy is. And what you got to know is, and you have to know this ahead of time, there's three kinds of people in the world. You have to get this straight. There's wise people. There's foolish people. That's what the Bible calls them, fools. And there's evil people. And some of you, this will help you, because some of you want to be so loving and so Jesus. You'll be more loving than Jesus was. Right. So the Apostle Paul says, pray that I be delivered from evil and unscrupulous men, for not all have faith. So I say the same quote from the Apostle Peter. There are some people that are evil. So while you're being loving, you also have to be discerning. Because there are certain people that are just, they're not people that you want to invest your hope or trust or confidence in, because they will hurt you. So you got to have discernment. There's other people that are just foolish. They're making bad choices. And fools can become wise. But you got to recognize these three categories of people, because the biggest mistakes I ever made in life was thinking that if I'm a Christian, Eric, you paying attention now? It's good to see you back in the classroom here after your hiatus for 2 days. Back with us. You want to be wise and recognize that most of the world is foolish. And there are evil people also. And you have to recognize that. Why am I telling this to you? Because if you're not discerning about this, you treat all people equally, at some point you'll get burned or hurt or betrayed or surprised by the abuse that you'll find got into your house or your child. Because there was an evil person you were loving to, and you were being more loving than discerning, and God would have warned you. So you love everybody. Let me ask you a question. Was Jesus trusting? Come on. Wasn't he love believes all things, trusts all things, hopes all things? Was Jesus trusting? You know I'm setting you up with that one. Go read the Gospel of John chapter 1. The Bible says, but Jesus trusted himself to no man, for he knew what was in him. How about that for Jesus? He loved, but he didn't trust. Girls, remember that. He may say he loves you, and you may love him, but do not trust him. So he's got a job. And he's ready. Like, why am I looking at you? I don't know. It's a word for you. All right. Anyway, I'm just giving you a Lance rant because I had to get this stuff out of my system. But I've been in this thing, and I'll tell you what irritates me. We need more comedians that can make fun of what's crazy. Because Christians are walking around on eggshells, and they're all uptight, and I'm telling you, we're spineless, we're embarrassed, we don't want to offend people. The LGBT community could care less who they offend. They are in your face. They're going to propagandize you. They're going to let you know that this is the way it is. And I want to know how come it's always some poor schlep evangelical florist or photographer or cake baker. Why don't they ever go to an angry Muslim? I mean, just once. Go to some real pissed off Muslim and say, we want you to bake her a cake for us. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If somebody comes to you and insists that you bake their cake, you say, I've got to put 2 men on top. All right. And you put Donald Trump and Mike Pence on top of the cake. And you say, I am an artist. This is my expression. Can you imagine? People self-identify. Self-identify. You jump out of a plane self-identifying as a parachute? What kind of stupidity is this? What? My wife's like, am I going too far? Yeah. I'll stop. I'm losing it. All right, I'm getting in trouble with my family. What I'm saying is, we have to have an attitude. I mean, you have to love everybody, but that doesn't mean you don't push back on culture. You have to push back on culture. Well, William, I can see what's going to be edited out of this project. I already can tell you, my family's insurance. I see my wife. All right, so tell us what's the schedule tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Who's got a microphone? All right, so that was awesome. I learned a lot. Did you guys learn a lot? Feel good too. Yo, me too. I'm taking the same bathroom breaks as you guys. Just hold up. We'll get through this. Stop tagging me.
Stop tagging me.
I wrote it down so I can read it. Be in your room tonight by midnight, remember, okay? We're going to come down and spot check. It's really important. If anything happens, we have to evacuate the building and you're not in the right room with the firemen. It's just this whole. So be in your room. Don't get me in trouble. Got it? Thanks. Tomorrow. Anyone know what you're supposed to wear tomorrow? Daff. You wear your gray shirt. Not too bad.
All right.
So.
I got flagged. I got flagged off my own program. My own program. They pulled me off the flag. They don't want to hear me. My family does not want the truth.